Welcome, FNews57 here. Once again, I'm back on my Xbox One, and today I will be bringing you yet another video for Gears 5. In this particular video, I am going to show you how to get the Palace Guard weapon skins, as well as complete the Nexus Siege Medal group as fast as possible. So, this is the new Horde event, or PvE event, in Operation 6 Content Drop 2, and of course at the end of the video we'll showcase the weapon skin. In order to unlock it, you're going to need to complete 4 medals, the first of which is Hollow Stormed for winning 1 match, the Heroes of the Nexus for defeating 15 Locust bosses, and then the Lambent Pandemonium for killing 30 Lambent, and then the Queen's Guard for the destruction of 50 Palace Guards. All of these are eliminations, not actual kills, and they all must be done in the limited time Horde event Nexus Siege. Super simple and relatively easy to do, but kind of frustrating at the same time, so navigate the menus over to Horde. Specifically, you will see right here the Nexus Siege event. Go ahead and search for a match on that. Now, like most all of the PvE events that they've done recently, you cannot do this event in a private game. You can also not do this event on master difficulty, two things that are retarded, but really shouldn't come as much of a surprise at this point. So it is a 10-wave game, and it's kind of interesting, so I'll leave the gameplay for all 10 waves in. If you wish to skip to the end where I showcase the weapons, there will be a timestamp in the description for you to just skip ahead to that. Now, classes, well, it really doesn't matter what class you use. I recommend doing this on the lowest difficulty, because unless you have a pre-made team, it's going to be kind of annoying to do on a higher difficulty, but pretty much any class will work. Infiltrator is the class that I feel is best for this particular task, but a good high-level brawler would be pretty easy. You could use veteran like we've used for the previous PvE events just to get the eliminations quickly, but these enemies tend to use cover far more efficiently than the swarm enemies, so I really wouldn't recommend it due to the limited ammunition. Now, moving forward on this, if you wish, you can get a team together. You could also bring in a couple of dummy controllers if you happen to have dummy accounts or spare controllers or both, and this way you'd be able to get more kills. But technically speaking, you can get all of these medals done in a single match, assuming you're playing on a difficulty where Iron Man is not turned on, by simply farming the 10th and final wave. However, in order to actually get that to happen, then you're probably going to need a coordinated team, so just bear that in mind. Now, there is no fabricator, no energy pickups, no in-game perks that you can buy, so I would recommend that you go ahead and skip as soon as possible, and basically just slay your way through. It's fairly simple and straightforward. Now, you're going to notice, for those of you who don't know what this event is, this Horde event is very different from the normal Gears 5 Horde, outside of it being a little bit laggy right now, which is kind of surprising. But you'll notice that we're fighting actual grubs, or, you know, the old school Horde enemies, the Locust, which kind of cool that they're back, but at the same time they do prefer to use cover more often, and they can be pretty deadly efficient, so you kind of have to bear that in mind. But the main thing is going to be to slay through the first wave as fast as possible, And you have to be a little bit careful because there's just not that much ammunition. That's what makes this difficult, is the fact that there isn't that much ammo. I do recommend you pick up a bolt hawk whenever you can, because that weapon's a lot stronger than the default pistol that this class starts with. But we'll primarily be using our shotgun. And you're just going to want to eliminate the enemies as quickly as possible, with the exception of palace guards, lambent, and bosses. Those you want to mark so that your teammates can get a hit to get an elimination on them. Now, I do apologize if I sound a little bit different. I'm still not really feeling 100% better, so just keep that in mind. So it's always nice to go ahead and mark the boss. You'll get one boss every 2 waves. Pretty easy. If you kill the boss fast enough on the 10th wave, you can actually get 2 bosses. But other than that, even if it's the very first enemy killed, the boss is usually just one boss there on the individual waves leading up to the 10th wave. So there'll be a boss on wave 2, then on wave 4, 6, 8, and 10. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now, the enemies are going to spawn all around the map because, unfortunately, there really isn't any way to prevent them from spawning in a particular area. The only way to really sort of control where the enemy spawns would be to keep all players in a similar spot, which, technically speaking, since this is only available on the map Nexus, you could go ahead and close off the door, and then if you kept all players up here, they technically wouldn't immediately spawn behind you, or at least they shouldn't spawn behind you for the majority. With that being said, though, the most difficult medals to get done are the Palace Guard eliminations and the Lambent eliminations. So the main thing is the Lambent enemies will spawn at the same time as the regular enemies, and immediately they will attack the regular enemies, and the regular enemies will attack them. Most of the time, the Lambent enemy will be killed by the regular Locust enemy before you even get to land a hit on them. So it's going to take you a little while to get those 30 eliminations. Now, the Palace Guards, I should mention, the reason that those enemies are so difficult is due to the fact that they don't actually spawn on the off waves. So, like wave 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, you might see like one Palace Guard. I've had a few friends tell me that they've seen Palace Guards on the odd waves, but I have never seen one. Unless you're playing with the team and just farming wave 10 over and over again, chances are this is going to take you probably 5 or more games in order to actually get all of the medals done, so just bear that in mind. But that's also why I recommend, if you see a boss, a Lambent enemy, or a Palace Guard, don't be that guy that just steals the kill. Put damage on them, and then you can go do whatever you want. And this way, at least, the teammates that are with you will be able to make progress on their medals. So, really easy and straightforward. Now, the Palace Guards are super easy to spot. They are unlike any of the other enemies. And, as I already mentioned, they pretty much mostly show up almost exclusively on the boss waves. Now, depending on the boss that you get, I've noticed that Germad, the sniper boss, and Scourge, those two bosses don't really tend to spawn Palace Guards as much. Now, see, that's a Palace Guard, and I just said that Germad doesn't seem to spawn them as much, but they do spawn when you get that particular boss. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you're playing on a harder difficulty, be careful, because these bosses can kill you very easily. But the Palace Guards are very close to the appearance of a normal Theron or Theron Elite, except their armor's different, their behavior is much more aggressive, and they have a lot more health. Other than that, like the regular enemies, the snipers and stuff, feel free to just eliminate those guys as fast as possible. It doesn't really matter. We just want to be done with these waves. Now, since you only need an elimination, as long as you deal damage to the enemy, you're fine. And of course, remember that you can get a maximum of 4 ammo boxes on the average wave, unless you make the wave take incredibly long, in which case you could get more ammo boxes. So that's going to be the big thing. The big challenge is dividing up ammunition amongst the players, especially if you're playing on a higher difficulty. This is kind of a cool concept. I just wish that there was more lambent enemies and there was more palace guards in order to make this actually go by faster. Another enemy to watch out for, I should mention, this is probably the most annoying enemy, but the Flame Grenadiers. The Flame Grenadiers, I've never actually seen use flame grenades, but they do carry a Scorcher, and they wield that Scorcher to devastating effect. And then, of course, there's regular Grenadiers and Grenadier Elites, and the Grenadier Elites love to throw frag grenades with ferocious accuracy, I might add. But as far as enemies go, I think it's a interesting event. It could be better than regular Horde in Gears 5, except for the fact that I kind of feel like it's pointless due to the modifiers and loot that are available for this. So since you can't play it on Master difficulty, and you can only play it on the Nexus map, it's kind of meh at the end of the day. It's an interesting event, but by the time you're done with the medals, most players will probably be like, okay, I've had enough on this particular event. And of course, General Ram makes an appearance. He's one of the bosses. We'll get a few more palace guards here. Now, the palace guards, you have to watch out for them. I should warn you now. While they use a torque bow like the regular Theron guards and the Theron elites, they have more health and they tend to go for headshots with that torque bow, so be very careful. Also, of course, the lambent, they do explode and they do some damage when they explode. That damage is worse on higher difficulties. But overall, pretty easy and straightforward. Just slay the enemies out. There's not a whole lot of enemies per wave, surprisingly. So it really shouldn't be that difficult for you to get the completion. Especially if you use a class that would be well suited for this. However, if you're playing on a higher difficulty, then that's a completely different story. And it may actually pose somewhat of a challenge. Hopefully you enjoy the event. It's a throwback to what Horde used to be, but of course, since there is no fabricator, you can't build any fortifications or anything like that. It does seem a little weird that you can use your skill cards and you can use your ultimate, but there's no in-game perks to upgrade since you don't get any energy. Of course, with the fact that there's no in-game perks to upgrade because you don't get any energy, you do have the issue that a lot of classes and builds really aren't viable for this. So, for instance, Anchor, who would rely on Boltok ammo regeneration through the perk that you upgrade with the ammo regen in Horde, that class is really not viable, even with Boltok Bandolier, simply because you don't get enough ammo boxes. Now, you could run the class if you wanted, but there's not much of a point. Same thing goes with engineering classes. There's really no point in running an engineer class on this. You could run Jack, I suppose, but to be completely honest, I don't really see much of the point in running Jack unless you were running a maxed combat Jack, which a maxed combat Jack could be kind of interesting. It would definitely be different, but I never tried running Jack because I've been doing this solo, so the best class I've found to do it with is the Infiltrator, since as you can see, these enemies do absolutely love to take cover, and with the line of sight on this particular map, plus the limited ammunition, it's really not worth it to use Veteran. If you wanted to use Veteran for this, you would have to pick up a long shot and Boltok, and then try to be very conservative with your ultimate so that you'd actually have enough ammunition for it. But of course, to each his own. Now, Scourge is one boss that will wield a Breaker Mace. So technically speaking, if you're playing a melee class that would have a benefit from the Breaker Mace, you could get a Breaker Mace from this boss. But since there's no Fabricator, there would be no way to replace it if you lost it. And of course, there's our ugly Scourge.
See you later.
Obviously, on higher difficulties, he would be terrifying with that Breaker Mace. Of course, there's another Palace Guard. And as always, if you do mark the enemy, then your teammates can see what enemy it is, even if they're not familiar with what the difference in the enemy types look like. This way, everybody knows, hey, there's a Palace Guard, and if they're working on their medals, they can get it done easier. But as long as you deal damage, you will get credit, so I'm not going to get the kill there. You'll notice that since that dude meleeed him, it popped up with the Palace Guard there in the bottom left-hand corner, and it said that I had 13 points. As long as you've dealt damage to the enemy, and they didn't go down and then get revived by another enemy, then you will get the, quote, elimination. Now, I'm actually doing pretty lucky this game because 2 of the randoms left, so that means more kills for me. But that means that the game takes longer, especially because chances are, well, the other player's just not going to skip. That's 2 things I have to politely ask the Gears community. When you are playing this, please skip. There is literally no point in not skipping. It's just a waste of time. Also, if you are playing this, try to let the teammates that you are playing with get a hit on the Palace Guards and a hit on the Lambent enemies. And technically the bosses, but chances are you're going to get the boss medal done way, way faster than the other medals, simply because you get 1 boss every 2 waves. More than likely, you'll get 2 bosses on the 10th wave, or the final boss wave. So it's actually pretty darn easy to do. And watch out for the frag grenades. The frag grenades are actually kind of beastly. Plus, of course, these flame grenadiers, like I already mentioned, they wield that frickin' Scorcher with absolute devastating power. It's especially annoying because it can just shred your stim. And like I said, most of the enemies do love to use cover, so. But other than that, fairly simple and easy, straightforward game mode. It's a throwback to the old school Horde, even though I might not particularly enjoy this event. It's different. It's alright. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. I really wish that the Flame Grenadiers weren't a thing, just because they're super annoying. But Mainly it's because there's a lack of really a reason to play this game mode once you get the medals done. And that's just simply because since you can't play it private, there's really no point. You can't get a master's check mark for it, which is something that they really should have given us the ability to have, is the master's check mark. But it does reward you with 4 skill cards. Out of the 5 games of this that I played, I did not have it crash on me at all, which was nice. And every time I did get 4 skill cards. So technically speaking, it's a little bit more efficient than doing a regular frenzy game of Horde. Get ready. If you care about the skill cards. But in all the other terms, just kind of feels lacking. Mostly because, well, all the classes don't really work that well for it. So I'll probably run it on Incon if I do get a team. You'll see a video on that. The final boss is always Queen Mira. And of course it does spawn a just ridiculous amount of palace guards. But when you have a full team, well, it's actually not that many palace guards. When you don't have a full team, then it seems like a whole lot of palace guards. If you prioritize the boss first, I would say out of the 5 games that I played, we got a second boss almost every time. Now you will notice that these enemies are wielding lancers, or there's a fair deal of them that are wielding lancers. I have yet to have a single one of the enemies actually try to chainsaw me, so I really wouldn't worry too much about that. But just bear in mind that they are carrying lancers, so if you do try to chainsaw them, more than likely you'll end up in a chainsaw duel. Just something to keep in mind. Since there's more enemies that spawn on wave 10, chances are you will find the Lambent scattered around, usually fighting some of the other enemies in the process. But just be careful of those palace guards because they are a lot tougher. They have more health, more damage resistance, and they're really good with the weapons that they wield. Now the palace guards usually wield the torque bows, but they will also wield lancers as well. And they tend to swing them at you and do the regular melee, which does quite a bit of damage as opposed to chainsawing. I'm actually kind of happy that they don't chainsaw, because if they did chainsaw, then that would be terrifying. But those torque bows will definitely shred your stim, and it takes a couple shots, even point blank from the Nasher, to take them down. Which, as you can see, can be quite annoying. So there's the Palace Guard. Just, you know, giving you a nice close-up of what that guy looks like before he, you know, runs away from me. And like I said, those torque bows, you have to be careful because the torque bow will down you, as you've seen in one hit. I didn't get my stim in time on that. I was too busy trying to get a nice close-up of the Palace Guard's armor. For some reason, this game's been really laggy. The other matches I played weren't a problem, but this one was very laggy. And if you beat all 10 waves, you'll get your normal victory screen. You'll get the medal for beating all 10 waves, plus whatever progress you got. Of course, you can simply have everyone on your team die at the end of wave 10, and then you'll restart if you don't have Iron Man on. And this way you can farm all of the stuff required. If you don't want to play multiple games, that's up to you. As promised, there's the 4 skill cards that you receive. And of course, here is our Palace Guard weapon skin set. which you do get the Palace Guard Talon. It is the full set, so not to be confused with the medal group that says future PvE event that shows the Palace Guard skin as well. I don't know if that's a visual glitch or what exactly that is. Alright, so now that we got that taken care of, let's go ahead and show you that the medals are completed. As you can see, Nexus Siege, done. And let me show off the weapon skins now. It'll take just a second to find because I have a ton of these skins. Alright, there we go. There is the Palace Guard skin. That one specifically for the Palace Guard Lancer, but it's not really that impressive. It looks alright. Doesn't really look super fantastic. It's a non-animated skin. Kind of a bit of a golden bronzed skin. That's really about it. Different, but definitely not my favorite in terms of a weapon skin or weapon skin set. And you can see that for all of the weapon skins. I just equipped it to all. It's got the same look, the same mannerisms to it. I guess it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it just is kind of... It's just kind of plain, really, if you ask me. So, rather simple and straightforward looking on the Nasher. Rather simple and straightforward looking on the pistol. Just not much to write home about. But that's the skin. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and you can easily get your Palace Guard weapon skins. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer them for you. Of course, smash the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay frosty.